So I wanted to bring your attention to a couple of the articles that have just been released in the last couple of weeks regarding yet more cybersecurity breaches that have occurred. And I'm sure by this point you're very numb to all of these headlines because it's almost on a daily basis and it doesn't seem to be subsiding. It seems, if anything, that it's getting worse. As you might remember from a prior video, is that Canalys put out a report showing that in 2020, 31 billion records have been compromised, representing over 50% of all records compromised since 2005. Quite simply, that means in the last year, more data has been compromised than in the last 15 years combined. And so we're used to the Microsoft, we're used to the SolarWinds, but now we've got Facebook and LinkedIn that have come out with some major breaches. Actually, it was April 8th that LinkedIn came out and said that 540 data records had been breached and that it had been dumped on the dark web. And of course, you had Facebook that had 500 million users breached. And that actually occurred back in 2019, but it was just dumped on the dark web just as this past Saturday, or maybe it was the Saturday before that. And so what I want to point out is we have a lot of our IT departments that are already overwhelmed and they're not really prepared for yet another wave of hackers coming their way. And I would say by all measures, they're doing an excellent job, even though they are under-resourced and understaffed. 95% of the hacks are not coming in through hardware and software, which is what their main focus is. It's coming in through us. 95% or hacks are because of the human element or human firewall, as we call it here at Midstate Cyber. And so it's the websites that we go to that we shouldn't. It's the things that we download that we shouldn't. And free software is always a major enticement for us, but the software is laced with malware and adware and things that are very malicious. And so we should not be downloading this content. More importantly, our password hygiene is horrid and leading to a great number of the hacks out there. And there's some things I wanted to focus on today to give you some more resources, more techniques of what you can do as an individual, or more importantly, as a company, to improve your cyber hygiene. So there will be links below. Also want to remind you of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. They were put in place specifically for small and medium-sized businesses to provide best practices. These are proven best practices that will increase your cybersecurity hygiene and reduce incidents. And AT&T has a wonderful study with great statistics that proves that the standard works. They actually have some good controls in place for password management that I want to focus on. And actually, there was an article by CNBC last year that focused on the most common password mistakes. And I'll post a link there, but just want to hit on a couple of these so that you really kind of get a better idea of what you guys can do to help safeguard your important data. So one of the key things that we want to do is, as a business, you need to be screening passwords. There are common passwords that are out there, comparing the passwords that you and your employees are using against lists of commonly used or known compromised. We have access here at Midstate Cyber, a very simple service, very inexpensive service, to be frank with you, that allows you to see what passwords are already breached out there on the dark web and see if those passwords your employees are using are on that list. So definitely recommend using some type of list to compare your passwords. Also recycling ones that you have. 71% of employees recycle their passwords. Now, why is this bad in light of the Facebook or LinkedIn breach? Well, it's very unnerving to have hundreds of different sites that we have to remember passwords for. So we really don't. We just reuse a password. We might change it or alter it just a little bit by adding an exclamation point or adding something funny just to alter it. But these hackers are wise to this, and they have been for years. And so all they do is take an existing password they know that you've used, and they run it through an algorithm to add these minor changes that they know that you make, and boom, they're into your account, whether corporate or or personal. And so one of the things that we do is if we have a Facebook password, the hackers know that that same password for Facebook, even though that it's personal, it's more likely to be used corporately as well. So again, because of this breach of Facebook and LinkedIn, we've got a business use, we have a personal use. But again, this data is now on the dark web. And don't think for a second that these hackers are not building profiles of you. Facebook is building profiles of you regarding their free social media site that we're so actively engaged in, but we have to realize nothing is free. They're taking all of our data, building profiles and using it for targeting ads. Now, the hackers know that there's a lot more money for them to build profiles and target you to get into your accounts, to steal your money, to steal your data, to use that data to set up checking accounts in your name, and all of a sudden ruin your identity and credit. So these hackers are doing the exact same thing that these corporations are doing, and we must be wise to it. So we want to make sure that we're not recycling it. And as a business, you really have an incentive or really a responsibility to run your employees through training and running these passwords they're using through lists. So also one of the things that the UK just put out about 4 days ago is that many of their citizens, and this applies in the United States too, that many of their citizens are using passwords that have familiar names in it. They're specifically saying the data points to dog names, but also some very other familiar things like your family members or places that where you live, etc. And so again, if the hackers are going out to Facebook and taking your data, they know about your dog Lila, they know about your dog Luna, they know about Tank, or whatever dog name that you have, or your daughter, and they're running these passwords or these names through their algorithm to see if they can find a match. And they often very much do. One of the things I also want to point out is that we don't want to remember our passwords on our computer. This was something that was widely done for many of the businesses that I have talked with, and really recommending to them that never have your employees record their passwords on Chrome or Edge or Mozilla or whatever it might be. It needs to be encrypted. It needs to be encrypted in transit. It needs to be encrypted and as it's in solid state or storage, I should say, and they cannot or should not put any passwords on their computer as a list, whether it's in their contacts, whether it's in an Excel spreadsheet or in a text file, because the first thing a hacker is going to do is search for your computer for all of these passwords. They're going to dump your browser passwords into their system. They're going to look for a text or an Excel file, look for your passwords, and all of a sudden now they have access to everything in your life. And again, that just causes a disaster. The other thing that you want to avoid is using common phrases or characters that we know that the hackers know that we use. So this is things like password. Password is the number one password. The number third or fourth, I think, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The fourth or fifth common password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so you want to avoid things like that, or QWERTY as another example. Avoid these very common hacked characters. So the other thing I just want to bring your attention to is your cell phone. We're using these more and more. People need to put on their cell phone a password itself. But remember, when you use a 4-digit password to get into your cell phone, it can't be 0000, which is very common, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is also common, or anything like love that turns out the characters that equal love, or anything that would be normal like that or familiar, like I said before. So I'm going to put a list down below. Some of this information, just remember to review your current standing. I would, again, look at NIST. They have specific controls. There's actually 3 different layers of their controls, dealing with passwords, dealing with multi-factor authentication or 2-factor, and then also something that deals with equipment sign on. So using maybe the Yubico or YubiKey. Google has one called the Titan that's very effective. I wouldn't use any of the older Bluetooth because Bluetooth is known to be hacked. This is actually Bluetooth here. I don't use, I just have it for display purposes, but it is the new version of Bluetooth that is less likely to be hacked. I don't use it. I use the equipment that plugs in that is very, very unique and very low, very secure, I should say, and would recommend to anyone that would use either the Titan key or the Yubico key. If you have any questions or need help, we have a whole team of white hat hackers and professional cybersecurity consultants here at hand to help you. No charge, just give us a call. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have, give you more information on this, and point you to some other resources. We definitely want to help keep you and your firm safe. Thank you and have a wonderful week.